that we're gathered here for today. As you know, the drums of war have been being beat from Massachusetts down to Spanish-held Florida. It seems inevitable at this point that we will soon declare war upon our ancient enemy, England. And of course, being where we are, being in these frontier territories, that means we shall no doubt bear the brunt that we have borne before and shall bear again. Earlier today, a scout of gentlemen came back to this gathering place and discovered the spoor of our native enemy not 5 miles from here. As you all know, Pigeon's Roost was destroyed, but recently by that same band of savages who have sought to deter our expansion into this land that we rightfully claim for ourselves. And while I am not a great enough person to debate with lawyers and...
Know me or have not met me before, I'm Jonathan Jennings, your representative to Congress. And here's hoping that soon, within the next few years, we can be a state with the same rights as everybody else.
Hear, hear.
Those of you that follow the politics of Indiana and Washington may very well know of my hesitance to support another war with the British. I wish nothing more than for a United States free from war and blood and sorrow which accompanies it. Sadly, our enemies have no desire to peaceably parley, a fact made no more clear than last year at Tippecanoe. Major Tipton, himself one of the few survivors of the massacre, what an enemy of liberty can do to befuddle another into committing acts that they themselves consider too brutal for their aristocratic hands. For that, and myriad other reasons, we have come to war. We, the men who will direct others to fight for us, do not do so lightly. When word of the massacre at Tippecanoe reached me, I made it my objective to secure benefits for the survivors and pensions for the widows and orphans that most cowardly act produced. I was able to convince my fellows in Congress to award such benefits, which were given with as much haste as could be mustered in November of last year. For these men, whom we recognize in sacrificing for the future security of our nation, I promise the same. You will not be forgotten, nor will the necessity of this, our second war for independence. The soldiers mustering here today stand ready to be led to war by men whom I know myself to be brave, true, and honorable. Your leaders are great, your cause is just, and you will be the reason our territory of Indiana and our great nation endure.
As the hero of last year's Battle of Tippecanoe, sir.
I don't know if I call myself a hero. I would like to thank Mr. Jennings for the work that he's done on behalf of the families of the Tippecanoe victims. Major John Tipton of the 5th Regiment Indiana Territorial Militia. General Harrison has asked me to be here today to add some credence to what Colonel Abel is attempting to recruit troops for. General Harrison, regards to yourself.
Thank you.
Our new nation, this nation that our fathers gave their youth and beyond to forge from the grip of the most powerful empire that this world has ever seen, is once again at war with that empire, Great Britain.
Indeed.
But make no mistake, the fight we will be fighting out here will not resemble the glorious tales of honorable European combat. Rather than face us honorably and match us with their own strength and ability honestly against ours like men, they have once again employed lawless bandit tribes from among our Indian neighbors who would drive us and our families from our rightfully and lawfully gained lands at any cost and by any means.
Hear him.
That is all I got through writing last night. My education was delayed when at the age of 7, my father was slaughtered by Indians who had been hired to assist political opponents, no different than what's happening with us in Great Britain right now. My education was delayed because I've been in this fight since I was 7 years old. And the situations I've encountered here in Indiana Territory is no different than what I left there in Tennessee. As soon as I was old enough there, I led my mother and my siblings up to Harrison County, what's now Harrison County, and we established a home. And I was with William Henry Harrison when we marched to what would eventually lead us to the Battle of Tippecanoe. Is there any man here who was with us at Tippecanoe? Mr. Reed, are you recovering from your experience well, sir?
It was difficult.
Absolutely, and you were there as well?
Indeed, sir.
Very good. We were on a political mission with General Harrison to negotiate for terms with the native tribes that had assembled into a confederacy under Tecumseh. You might have noticed that as our lawful settlements do expand, that we have run into more and more conflicts on the periphery. This could have been settled there had certain tribes not been incited to violence against our party by some of the more warlike tribes who were encamped at Provincetown. We were not engaged in a fair and honorable fight. Our camp was invaded and rushed on a cowardly sneak attack just after 4 a.m. in November. I watched 30% of our company be slaughtered in a sneak attack. Those were my friends, those were my neighbors, I knew their children. These were people just trying to raise a family out here in this land. And I watched them be slaughtered. At the end of the day, I was the only officer among the Corridor Rifle Company that was left alive. I watched my friend and my mentor, Spear Spencer, be shot through the chest, through the legs, and continue on, propped up by 2 of our men. He did not stop leading that defense until a bullet passed through his chest. And so I got to take his sword and epaulet home to his widow. This is the fight that we are going to be fighting here in Indiana Territory. It's not going to be clean. It's not going to be honorable. It's not going to be the glorious stories that we heard from the last war. But we're going to win this war. We are going to win this war. We are going to safeguard our homes. We're going to safeguard our families. And when it's over and we have driven the British away again, there will still be a threat present. The trend that we have seen over the past several decades is that we will not be able, our settlements, our lawful settlements on our lawfully acquired land will not be able to coexist peacefully with the Indian people. Less than a decade ago, we opened up an immense amount of land to the west of here. Captain Lewis and Captain Clark exported themselves. There is land that now belongs to us that was formerly a part of French holdings. When this war is over, when we have won, the only way to make sure this didn't happen, that this does not happen again, for our sake, for our children's sake, for God's sake, for the Indians' children's sake, to make sure this does not happen again, we must pursue a policy. Mr. Jennings, I hope you're listening. We must pursue a policy of removing those tribes to the west, peacefully if we can, by the negotiations that we were trying to execute that led to the Battle of Tippecanoe, if we can, by force if necessary. But so that we do not find ourselves in this spot again, we must pursue a policy of removal. For peace in the future in the United States. And if any of you think me too harsh, then I promise you, once you have seen what I've seen, after a few months of this conflict, your mind will be changed. That is what we are fighting for. That is what we must do. That's why you need to seek your label at the end of this day. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Here, raising troops for the defense of this land. I'd like to invite him to come up and speak to you now. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Abel.
My fellow citizens, I sing the song of my country, and I ask myself, how shall it be writ? And in listening to the stirring words of the speakers before us, I began to realize that it would be my duty to pray to the Almighty for Him to guide my words so that you might hear Him and hear of the blessings He has bestowed upon you in His God-given rights. And I began looking at the brave gentlemen here gathered before us, and the beauty is fair. And my attention was drawn to this woman right over here, plaiting. And I began asking myself, what is she doing? Is she making something to shade herself from that which would overpower her? Or is she weaving the chains of despotism to bind us as our ancient enemy has once bound us? And I realized it was a two-edged sword, that it could be both. But the only way it could be on one side of that particular sword would be of individuals such as you, who would come forward and say, this I will defend. As Major Tipton has explained to you, it is one thing to sing the ancient songs of victory, the Iliad, the Odyssey. It is another thing to cradle your friend in his arms as he passes from this world to the next, and quizzing yourself, would you have been able to save him and do better than you have done? We are a nation of sovereign individuals. The stars in our flag, no star shines brighter than the next. All stars shine in equal brilliance. And each one of you are sovereign individuals who owe allegiance to no crown. The rights did not come from a bureaucrat, from a government official. They came from God. And woe betide any of us on the day of judgment when we stand before Him and be accused of allowing the rights which He gave us to be extinguished, because we would rather sit by the hearth, drink from the jug, follow the ladies, or engage in any other indolent joy. It is easy to be a slave. The hardest thing you will ever do is to be free. And freedom will rest only in one man's hands. The man who is willing to die for it. I can't force you to make your choice, but in the end, as a sovereign individual, it is what you must do. For it rests only on one man, on you. You heard about husbanding crops. I try to husband freedom and provide that freedom for you. This is your birthright as Americans. The breeze now that flings our ensign to the sky proudly proclaims our liberty. And in conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, may I always charge you that when you gaze upon that flag and you look at those alternating red and white stripes, you must realize that the bottom stripe is red. Your nation is built upon and maintained the blood of patriots, the blood of sovereign individuals, no different than yourself. And I hope you will look into your heart of hearts and realize that it's time to answer the hard call of honor, to step forward and say, "This I will defend."
Hands pride and boast, and they who speak the truest praise them most. Their great exploits appear sublimely bright and shine in their native, not a borrowed light. We do not need anyone else's light to make our land and our people, and that is what our land is all about, ladies and gentlemen. It is in our people. We are America. We are the United States, not the soil we trod upon. We, by standing here and claiming this patch, say we as Americans will be here. And we do not need a borrowed light for our own glory to shine forth. So I tell to you, let your native light shine forth today. Whatever your motivation, choose a path. Make it be clear and concise. And make it with conviction. And I tell you, I have faith that we and our nation will be saved if you do so. Thank you.
Music, troops alive.
party, post.
Color party. To the front. March. Left of our wheel. Hop. Hop.
Three cheers for the song